welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hofmeyer, and joining me is a man who is about to belt out a stirring rendition of Sweet Caroline. It's Erik Hofmeyer.
I can't do it. I'm not from Massachusetts. Not going to happen.
Remember when we used to go to Tampa Bay Rays games, and now they're crushing it. But when we lived there, Erik, in St. Petersburg, they were not destroying it. And we would get Red Sox fans in, and they would take over the stadium. And And this was after they won their championship, so they weren't the underdogs anymore. This is after fever pitch. Red Sox fans.
When did Sweet Caroline become such an anthem in Massachusetts? So, how long has it been?
97 is when it became, because I read some quotes here from the director, Ted Demme, and the writer, Scott Rosenberg, where they're like, yeah, we put this out in 96 and 97. That song got popular in the stadium. But according to NPR and several other articles, somebody had a friend whose daughter's name was Caroline. And so that year, in honor of her, they put that song on. And then everyone sang it and they won. And then they won again. So then it became superstition. So I don't know if it was Beautiful Girls, but the story that people have admitted to is that it was that like a guy just dedicated it to the daughter. Which is kind of like, this podcast takes me some interesting spots of research. It's something cool that I learned. So, yeah, it wasn't because of Beautiful Girls. It was because of a daughter named Caroline. And in my notes, I wrote Sweet Coraline, which if you've seen that movie...
I haven't. It creeps me out too much. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to show my kids either.
You know when people say, like, oh, it's nightmare fuel? Like, that movie's nightmare fuel. Like, that's... I find PG-rated kids films to be the scariest things. So you have Ernest Scared Stupid, you have Coraline.
She's like the female version of the troll from Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah, the other mother. Ooh, I know it has nothing to do with Beautiful Girls, but yeah. But yeah,
you're going the wrong direction from the movie we're discussing now.
I always try to go to Ernest Scared Stupid, so it's like a tractor beam. I just got to get pulled back to Beautiful Girls. Now, Erik, you and I. All right, so this came out in '96. And then I remember I got it from Columbia House Video, I believe, in 1997. And so that's when you graduated. You were gone, like in 98.
Yeah.
But you and I watched this together. Like you were.
We did.
All right, so 96, we saw this in the theaters, I think. We were watching all these movies in the theaters. I was 14, you were 16 when this came out. And I remember watching it and just going like, this is cool. Like these are people talking. I hadn't been like beaten down. Like I had no idea what it was like to be a 27-year-old dude who goes back to his town and just complains about his like girlfriend who's totally fine and a lawyer and probably pays for you to be a piano player. And then you go back home and you just tell all your friends that she's a 7.5, even though she's awesome. Like I had no idea what any of that was all about. But hearing all the converse, like Scott Rosenberg, like as Ebert said in his review that you sent me, Ebert said that he did a much better job in this film than he did in Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. Because Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead feels like every movie's written, but that movie feels so egregiously written that it just infuriates you. But the speeches in this play quite naturally, I would say.
I agree. When I look back at my high school years and the movies I remember the most, this is probably in the top 5 of the quintessential movies of my life. And I think as a high school student, this is like a course in relationships as an adult. So you think like this is normal behavior, or you think these guys are cool. And you don't realize that it's just painting a picture about their colossal character flaws. And I think it sunk in. I took it so seriously in high school because those conversations were so natural. Like you said, it wasn't forced. It felt like buddies just hanging out, having conversations. And that's what I thought the world was like. So you're absolutely right. It felt really natural and like they're actually friends and these are real conversations that are happening.
And with Rappaport, when he's talking about beautiful girls and their gait and all that kind of stuff. But then you start thinking about it and you're like, this dude's 27. He's living in a room surrounded by photos of pinups.
Did we notice though, in the 90s, the pinups and the posters on the wall were a big thing. Like I remember we had all kinds of athletes and actors. I think we had some models on
Jenny
the wall.
McCarthy. I bought it at Walmart.
It was the age of pinups. That was a thing in the 90s, though. So now it seems weird because you got the internet and you can just go to whatever Instagram page you want. But then, you had it readily available by having the poster on the wall.
Oh no, that was a norm for '90s. But I guess it was a different culture too. But still, a 27-year-old dude who got broken up with and he's just harassing his girlfriend at a coffee shop, like with nothing but that. Like he's like, but I thought he was
Yeah.
cool though. That rich man, poor man. When I was like, oh man, that's awesome. They're gonna skip a social gathering to watch this show on TV. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, I thought that scene was pretty funny. It
Yeah.
was good, but really Matt Dillon brooding and just drinking and watching TV show. But yeah, you're right. You don't realize that this guy is not really cool. But in high school, you think he's cool.
I read a really funny. I think you might have shared this with me. I forget who did, but they went out and they cast. Like this is really well cast. I mean, Rappaport really pulls off the role. Hutton pulls it off. Matt Dillon, he plays off Birdman. Like you feel like he could have
Yes.
beaten up those four dudes. You feel that
But he
he's
is an
just
athletic, strong, handsome guy.
great at being morose in this. So I mean, they cast it really really well. But someone's like, if they just cast like regular looking people and like non-actors, this would be the most depressing movie ever made. Like imagine if they shot this movie with non-actors for 15,000.
Yeah, it would have been. But also the weather has something to do with it. I think that they filmed it in the bleak part of the winter with the snow everywhere. It wasn't sunshiny. They're drinking all the time.
Yeah.
Remember that line where Timothy Hutton says, "Oh, I've been drunk for 2 weeks," and I thought that was cool in high school, but now we're thinking about, hey guys, you might be prematurely aging here.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. If they weren't good looking and if they weren't so optimistic and had that hope for a better day, it would have been a very depressing movie.
Yeah, it's like, what do I'm gonna go home sad, and then it all ends like not much changes at the end, but you
No,
still, it's quite an interesting movie, and the reviews are really positive. I went through the reviews on Rotten Tomato, and I went through just to see who did fresh and rotten. I just wanted to see like what the overall vibe was, and this is about 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 7.1 on IMDb, which is like if it's over 7 on IMDb, that's a true barometer of whether people like it or not. Like
the audience
6.5,
score is high too.
yeah, 6.5 is fine, but if you get over 7 on IMDb, and I looked at like, okay, what do women think about this movie? Like imagine being a woman watching this movie, like Mira Sorvino's character. But I noticed that like 70% were positive. So I guess this at the time when this movie came out, people really looked at it favorably. But I think Ted Demme did a good job directing it. You have a good, likable crew of actors. It's one neat thing about it, Eric, is like it's wildly authentic looking. The production design, the wardrobe. I mean, just the cars that they drive around. The cars look dirty. Like the cars look like they've been driven around in that snow for a while.
It looks like every town USA, any small town across the country.
And it's in no way insulted. Like there's big houses in this town. So there's no like looking down on this town. And to be fair, I mean, Dillon and Rappaport, they're business owners. They snowplow the entire city. Like that's a good job that they have. And so, what's up?
And whoever wrote it, they understood small towns, the way that rumors get around the city about the affairs, the way that they refer to people as by what job they do. Like he's dating the meat cutter. He doesn't have a name. He just says the meat cutter because everyone knows what you do. And that's how they refer to you instead of their actual name. So it was really authentic. So I'm sure the writers grew up in small towns and had that to draw upon.
Oh, well, so Scott Rosenberg, let me read this to you. So he wrote, Scott Rosenberg, Beautiful Girls came out because I'd been working for months on the script for Con Air. In those days, the studio would make you write a detailed treatment before sending you off to script. It was a way for them avoiding to pay a step. Between Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead and Con Air, I was fully submerged in like violence, anger, racial epithets, death, porn. I was numb. I had been dealing with nothing but dark, because those are two quite violent movies that he was looking into. He's like, I found myself back in my hometown outside of Boston during one of the worst winters ever, and I was waiting on Disney to approve Con Air. He's like, I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 7 years. The snowplows were driving by my window, many driven by my buddies from high school, when it occurred to me, there is more, quote, there's more action, in air quotes, going on with my buddies here with turning 30 and not being able to deal with the women in their lives than in 20 Jerry Bruckheimer movies. So he wrote this movie in 5 days.
Wow.
He told his brother, he's like, I said to my kid brother, I'm going to my room and write, leave me alone. 5 days later, he came out with this script and it just poured out. He didn't think it was anything special, but he thinks that's why it resonates with so many people because he knew these snowplow drivers. He
Right.
lived in this snowy town. He had 7 years, man. He had just broke, that's where Plimpton and Rappaport been together for 7 years. So I think he wrote this, and he was a writer coming home. He wasn't doing too great. And then he wrote this movie in 5 days. And the interesting thing, he went in to do a TV show called October Road, where it's about a writer going back to his hometown after he was famous for writing a movie about his hometown.
Right.
So he had to deal with his friends afterwards for writing this script. So there is a lot of authenticity to it. And the director, Ted Demme, made everybody live together for 3 weeks.
Yeah. I bet the writer had some awkward conversations after the movie came out.
Yeah, exactly. But you sort of feel it. Like, this is a movie that comes from someone. This is a very earnest write. This seems like not like a first draft, but actually, he completely wrote it with James L. Brooks, who, as good as it gets in all those movies. And then James L. Brooks stepped away because he's like, I can't direct this movie. I'm like a 50-some-year-old dude. How am I going to direct a movie about these guys, 20-year-olds? So he passed it to Demme, who worked on.
They brought in the MTV guy.
Yeah, the MTV guy. But what's crazy? The MTV guy didn't MTV it up. Like, he lets shot lingers. There's a lot of quiet moments in this. There's some emotional moments.
Lingered. Yeah. They lingered on the supporting characters a lot. Like, they gave all the supporting characters a little bit of love, like Stinky, the sidekick, these random shots of people. He really did live in those little moments.
Free apps.
Yeah, Stinky.
I did feel bad for
the sidekick with the hat.
Oh, Max Pirlick, he's great.
Yeah,
but I love
he
Max
had a lot of
Pirlick.
funny lines.
But he also called out Dillon, like, hey man, like, how about you take a styrofoam cup? Like, you gonna bring back these mugs? He's like, dude, she's married. Like, these guys tell each other what's on their minds. They don't look at themselves. Like, they're totally fine. Like, Hutton is fine telling everybody else what to do, but he never looks at himself.
Well, that's the sign of when you have a good friend, is that they don't feel worried about telling you when you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think a good barometer of a friend is when you're doing something wrong and they tell you. And I think they captured that perfectly. And I think the brilliance of this script is not just the actual script itself, but how he brought in these different layers in that are so much to work with. Like, someone returning home after a long time to reconnect with everyone, like how much you've changed, how much your family has changed. Then you've got the 10-year reunion angle. Then you've got the fear of commitment. And then you've got the story angle, and you've got conflict at the end with the fight that they had. There was so many different areas to work with that all had this really cool intersection in this small town.
I mean, think about it. If you're Erik Dirty Hofmeyer in high school, right? You're the dirtiest, and like, you're just causing trouble. You're running stuff over. Like, everyone knows you as like, it's Dirty Hofmeyer. And then you come back 10 years later, but you've grown up, you've been domesticated, you have a job. Those people are going to be like, Dirty Hofmeyer, like, let's go roll. Like, there's that old, like, you sort of revert sometimes when you go back home. And I'm not saying you would, exactly. But that's how they know you.
Do you remember Just Friends when Ryan Reynolds was really fat in high school?
Yeah.
And he had the retainer, and then he got really fit, became a music executive, and he came home and he started reverting to his old high school ways in small town New Jersey.
That's what happens.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Because that's what they know you as. And, like, these people knew you growing up. Like, you spent all your time together. You grew up with them. So even though they haven't seen you in a while, they know, like, Dirty Hofmeyer. I'm not saying that was your name, but I actually
Did you do a video? You did a
Dirty
video
Hofmeyer.
Playing cards.
Yeah. That was a good one. That was a funny video. But no, I think it's, and I don't know, I haven't watched this movie since the 90s. I really haven't. Have you?
No, I have not watched it, I think, since high school or maybe college. It's been that long. It's always so fun to revisit these movies. We've been on a great tear with our 90s revisited. Starship Troopers, My Best Friend's Wedding, Only This Strong, and now this. It's just so much fun to experience it as a high schooler and then as an adult. And you look at it through a completely different lens.
You know what's interesting sometimes? People watch a movie and they're like, well, it doesn't hold up 20 years later. But I don't know if I like that phrase because you've changed 20 years. So it's, who was the demographic for this movie? Like, who?
Well, it could be a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's like, if you haven't changed in 20 years, it may be on you.
Yeah.
You know, are you growing? Are you moving forward in your life?
It's like, this movie does, like, so Starship Troopers for me holds up because when I saw it when I was a kid, I loved the action and explosions and all that. But then now I watch it knowing more about Verhoeven. I love the